Lately I got a couple of PowerShell questions that were asked, so I wanted to do a video that kind of covered some of the basic questions that come up. First off, what version of PowerShell do I have? Now, in my case, I know that I'm running version 5, but in case you didn't know, you can use the $PS table to establish which version you're using and which version you have. Now, keep in mind that 5.1 is the current one, but you do go all the way up to version 6 in the beta and alpha. Also keep in mind for when I'm using DSC resources, version 4 is a minimum requirement. There's also the requires function that I wanted to use. So as you can see, we use a hash to add a comment to a script or DSC resource, but you can also use the hash requires function. So I'm going to do a very simple script here, which just does an output to show that whether the script ran or whether the script did not run. Now, the requires allows you to do some simple outputs. So first of all, script works. Everything looks fine, right? Next, we're going to do the requires and add something simple. So I'm going to put requires and then I'm going to say version. And since I know that I've got version 5.1, I'm going to do something crazy and say version 7, which doesn't exist. Now, if I run it, I'm going to get the interesting scenario whereby it's actually going to run. So just to demonstrate this, I'm going to go ahead and run it. And as you can see, it simply outputs. So the script runs. It's ignoring the hash value that I put in there, but the script hasn't been saved. So if I go ahead and save the script, and I'll just give it an example name. Being lazy, I'll call it example. And then I go to run it again. And this is probably not the best format, so I'm just going to change it around so you can see what the error output is. You're going to see that it basically tells me I do not have that version of PowerShell, which is obvious since it doesn't exist, but it's an example of how you can put into your scripts a minimum requirement. Let's say that you require a module that exists only in version 4 onwards. You can say, okay, it's version 4, must be in order to run. So we're going to reset it back to version 5 so we can see that the script ran perfectly normal again. So let's see some of the other options that are available to us. So some of the other options that we can use with the requires is we can also say requires module. So I just put a dash modules, then I can put in a list of modules. So in this case I'm going to go ahead and put in SQL Server, which is a perfectly normal and in most cases for me a used module, but since I don't have this module installed on this machine, it's going to throw me an error. And lo and behold, SQL Server module is not loaded. So that's another perfectly good and valid scenario. If your script requires a module to be there and the module is not loaded, this way you can prevent it from causing you issues further down in the script, and then lots of debugging. Another good requires is run as admin. Now sometimes you need admin permissions to perform certain functions, and it's kind of difficult sometimes to troubleshoot where it went wrong if it's missing. Now a good example is I always run into if it doesn't run as admin, clusters are particularly problematic. So here you can see we do the must run as admin, and since I'm not running as admin, I get an error. So I'm going to go ahead and run the same script but from a admin prompt, or a prompt at least where I'm logged in as admin, and then I should be able to run the script and you can see it ran exactly the same. So just to prove that it is the same script and that I'm using the same machine, I'm just going to add one extra sentence part, and then there we go, and we see yes, it still runs. Now this is a great way of checking whether you have the permissions or not to run the script and not consequently getting the error that you would normally get if you don't have those permissions and then spending hours debugging where it went wrong and why. Now that's it for this video. Hopefully you found it useful, and if you did, please give us a like or subscribe for further videos.